The King Deek was really a far King Khunt, a satirical narration of the predicament we find ourselves in today. Introduction. In sub-Saharan Africa, eons ago, in the foothills of a large mountain range, there lived a tribe of semi-nomadic, tribal peoples called the Khunts. They were gatherers, in touch with nature, only taking what they needed for living good and healthy lives. A highly spiritual peoples that never really troubled anyone, happily sharing their foraging lands with the neighboring people of the lowlands, the Deeks.
The Khunts and the Deeks were two semi-nomadic tribes that lived in relative harmony. They roamed the vast savannas, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of nature. The Khunts, known for their vibrant red and orange tents, were skilled weavers and herders. Their days were filled with the soft bleating of sheep and the rhythmic clatter of looms. The Deeks, with their tents of cool blues and greens, were hunters and gatherers. They moved silently through the grasslands, their knowledge of the land unmatched. Despite their different lifestyles, the two tribes coexisted.
Whilst very different in appearance and lifestyle to the Khunts, Deeks demonstrated the same tolerance and acceptance of others in their realm as the more open Khunts showed. The Deeks were hunters and seed dispersers, always making sure they placed new seed where they had removed a resource. For generations, they lived side by side, sometimes trading but never interbreeding. Not because they couldn't, it's just that the Deeks didn't really like the look of the rather hairy Khunts. The Deeks were mostly bald and considered hair an abrasive annoyance. Life went on and life was calm and good. That was until one day, one of the Deeks began to step out of line. Feeling more important than the average Deek, his head began to swell along with his ego. He started telling others to do things for him, and to his surprise, most Deeks just went along and did what he had asked. Becoming more brazen, he began telling them to do things that they didn't necessarily agree with, so he would get angry and red-faced, that usually being enough to get compliance. He felt like he was becoming truly himself, a real, righteous Deek. He began to feel invincible, taut, cocked and ready to respond to any weakness he might see in other, softer Deeks, seeing that weakness in the flaccid populace as his opening to take command. His overbearing nature, coupled with his overzealous aggression, quickly subdued the other Deeks. No longer satisfied with just throwing his weight around and being the biggest swinging Deek, he decided one day to declare himself king of all the lands. He would be King Deek, ruler of all, including those Khunts over there in the foothills.
They traded goods, shared stories around crackling fires, and celebrated each other's traditions. The Khunts provided the Deeks with warm blankets and sturdy fabrics, while the Deeks supplied the Khunts with meat from their hunts and knowledge of the land's bounty. They believed in the balance of nature and respected each other's ways, their lives interwoven like the threads of their finest tapestries. For generations, this peaceful coexistence continued, each tribe enriching the other's lives. The elders taught their children about the importance of respect and understanding. The Khunts learned to appreciate the Deeks' deep connection to the land, while the Deeks valued the Khunts' craftsmanship and resourcefulness. This harmonious balance, however, was not destined to last.
The Khunts had no ruler, as they were anarchists, happy with self-rule, and were surprised when a Deek arrived and, acting as an emissary, positioned himself near the sacred statue of Horus, where the old Khunts hung out most of the day, just like a couple of Deeks might, sharing odious tales of when Horus left all of the Khunts suddenly on a full moon, leaving by a sneaky back door, never coming back. On hearing the news about the self-declared King Deek, they told the emissary his position was vulnerable and he'd best get the fuck out of here, because we might look like just a bunch of dumb old, useless Khunts to you, but we have a whole tribe back there, and no one tells those Khunts what to do, and beware. They can be vindictive, nasty Khunts. They're saying, from the premenopausal period of history, which went something like this: Helen hath no fury, like a woman caused by a Deek acting like a Khunt. The new self-proclaimed King Deek would cajole and bully others from both tribes into submission by stroking their egos and inflating their self-flagellating ideas like the Dutch oven, a place for cooking the Dutch, a do-not-touch tribe. They would take these ideas and build them into an overproud bubble of bravado. Later, the king would prick that bubble and discard them when he no longer considered them a useful tool for his ends. Soon, he had amassed an army of mostly cocky Deeks, raring for a fight. Paying them in plundered goods from the villages, he had them rape and pillage. The army consisted of only the hardest Deeks. Staunch supporters of the king, they trained and planned for battle, favoriting formations such as a phalanx, and, through endless repetition, they mastered the thrust so they could do it blind.
A storm was brewing, one that threatened to tear apart the fabric of their shared existence. Within the Deek tribe, a young man named Deek began to rise in prominence. He was a skilled hunter, his aim true and his courage undeniable. He returned from hunts with more game than others, his tales of daring exploits echoing around campfires. He was charismatic too, his words weaving a tapestry of ambition and grandeur. However, beneath Deek's charm lurked a growing hunger for power. He began to question the Deek's traditional ways, their nomadic lifestyle, and their respect for the Khunts. He believed that the Deeks were destined for more than just hunting and gathering. He envisioned a future where the Deeks would be the dominant tribe, their power unmatched across the savannah. Deek started to sow seeds of discontent among his people. He spoke of the Khunts' wealth, their flocks of sheep, and their intricate crafts. He insinuated that the Khunts were taking advantage of the Deeks' generosity, growing fat on the fruits of their labor. He whispered of a future where the Deeks would no longer share but would rule, their dominance unquestioned.
I proclaim myself King Deek, the rightful ruler of all the Deeks and, by extension, the Khunts. We will no longer wander the savannah, but will establish a permanent settlement. We will enjoy the fruits of the Khunts' labor and live a life of abundance.
Fueled by Deek's persuasive words, a faction within the Deek tribe began to rally behind him. They saw in him a leader who could bring them power and prosperity. They grew envious of the Khunts' possessions and tired of their nomadic existence. Deek's ambition resonated with their desire for a more settled, dominant life. One day, Deek, emboldened by the support of his followers, made a shocking declaration. Deek's declaration sent shockwaves through both tribes.
One day, the two tribes had had enough of this Deek running roughshod, poking himself uninvited not only into every other Khunt's business, but also that of the Deeks, and by getting it on behind his back. In a secretive meeting, they all agreed that it needed to stop by having him pull out of this potentially asinine, anti-productive behavior. Both societies got their elders together for that meeting, with no designated rulers. They were individualistic, anarchistic in structure. They had no need or purpose for a ruler or ruling class, as they believed they had it straight. Happily and confidently they had self-managed their societies, doing it easily in the spirit of their true nature. No Khunt wanted to be a Deek, for example, as they were confident and sure just being themselves, Khunts doing their thing, just being Khunts, and Deeks poking around as they were positively inclined to do. Both tribes thrived for over 1,000 years this way, without a ruler king. But the need for a king wasn't far away. At this meeting, they all decided they needed to change. Present were the biggest swinging Deeks and wisest old Khunts. They decided that the only way to bring the rogue, self-flatulating new King Deek into line was to install a real king, nominated by the people and anointed for their unbiased and just view of the tribes, favoring none over another. Then, together, they would raise an army of big, nasty knobby Deeks and willing Khunts, dripping in fervor, an army to challenge and defeat the woeful false king. It was decided at the meeting, due to their more fraternal nature, that only a true Khunt could be king, as Deeks admitted, that they can easily get out of hand and respond to situations prematurely, a most unsuitable affliction for a king to carry forward.
The elders of the Deek tribe, steeped in the traditions of their ancestors, were horrified. They recognized the danger in Deek's ambition, the potential for conflict and disharmony it held. They tried to reason with Deek, reminding him of the importance of balance and respect. However, Deek, drunk on power and ambition, refused to listen. He brushed aside their concerns, dismissing them as the ramblings of old men stuck in the past. News of Deek's self-proclaimed kingship spread like wildfire across the savannah, reaching the Khunts, who listened with a mixture of disbelief and anger. Initially, the Khunts dismissed Deek's proclamation as the folly of a power-hungry youth. They believed that the Deek elders would quickly put an end to his reckless ambition. However, as days turned into weeks and Deek's grip on the Deek tribe tightened, the Khunts realized the gravity of the situation. Whispers of discontent began to surface within the Deek tribe as well. Many Deeks, though initially swayed by Deek's charisma, began to question his motives. They had no desire for conflict with the Khunts, no wish to live a life built on subjugation. They valued the harmony that had existed between the two tribes for generations. We have always known the Deeks as peaceful neighbors, intertwined with our lives for generations. The idea of a Deek king, especially one who seeks to subjugate us, is unfathomable.
The land was once a tapestry of chaos, torn by strife and distrust. At its heart was King Deek, a ruler of unmatched ambition and questionable morals.
I seized power through cunning and manipulation, fracturing the delicate balance between the land's two prominent tribes, the Khunts and the Deeks.
Under Deek's reign, favoritism ran rampant. The Deeks, emboldened by their newfound power, exploited the land and its resources. They disregarded the ancient customs that had long held the tribes together. The Khunts, once proud and prosperous, found themselves marginalized and oppressed. Their voices stifled, their traditions trampled upon.
My reign was a whirlwind of erratic decrees and self-serving policies. I amassed wealth and power, enriching myself and my loyal Deek followers, while the rest of the land, Khunts and Deeks alike, suffered under my tyranny.
The seeds of discontent sown by Deek's divisive rule took root, threatening to erupt into open rebellion. The land, once vibrant and alive, was shrouded in fear and uncertainty. The whispers of dissent grew louder, echoing across the plains and valleys, a testament to the growing resentment against King Deek's oppressive rule. The time was ripe for change, for a leader who could mend the fractured land and restore harmony to its people. The Khunts and the Deeks, though sharing a common land, were as different as night and day. The Khunts, known for their stoic nature and unwavering adherence to tradition, were deeply connected to the land. They were skilled farmers and artisans, their lives governed by the rhythms of nature. Honor and integrity were paramount to them, and their word, once given, was unbreakable. The Deeks, on the other hand, were a nomadic people, their lives dictated by the pursuit of knowledge and new experiences. They were traders, explorers, and storytellers, their caravans traversing the land, bringing news and exotic goods from distant corners. They were adaptable and quick-witted, their culture fluid and ever-evolving. For generations, the Khunts and Deeks had coexisted in a state of uneasy peace. They traded goods and services, each benefiting from the other's strengths. However, deep down, suspicion and mistrust lingered, fueled by their contrasting ways of life and a history marred by occasional skirmishes over resources and territory. King Deek's reign shattered this fragile peace. His blatant favoritism towards his own tribe, the Deeks, and his disregard for the Khunts' traditions ignited the flames of discord. The two tribes, once bound by a common destiny, were now on the brink of war, their shared history threatening to be consumed by the fires of hatred and revenge. As Deek tightened his grip on the land, a sense of urgency gripped the hearts of the people. Elders from both tribes, their faces etched with worry and wisdom, began to convene in secret. They met under the cloak of night, far from the prying eyes of Deek's spies, their faces illuminated by flickering firelight. These clandestine gatherings were a testament to the desperate need for change.
We, the elders, keepers of our tribe's history and wisdom, understood the gravity of the situation. We knew that if we did not act swiftly and decisively, the land would be consumed by a conflict that would leave both Khunts and Deeks devastated.
Many moons passed as the elders debated, their voices hushed yet filled with passion. They weighed the options, each fraught with risk, each carrying the weight of their people's future. Some argued for open rebellion, for meeting Deek's tyranny with brute force. Others preached patience, believing that Deek's reign, like all storms, would eventually pass.
Finally, from the whispers and arguments, a consensus emerged. We, the elders, guided by ancient prophecies and our own wisdom, arrived at a radical solution to appoint a new king, a true Khunt, known for his wisdom, fairness, and unwavering commitment to justice. This king, we believed, would be a beacon of unity, someone who could bridge the divide between the Khunts and Deeks and usher in an era of peace and prosperity.
The decision to appoint a true Khunt as king was a gamble, a desperate attempt to restore balance to their fractured world. The elders knew that finding a leader who possessed the qualities they sought would be no easy feat. They needed someone who embodied the Khunts' inherent sense of justice and fairness, yet also someone who could command the respect of the Deeks and win their allegiance. The search for the true Khunt began in the heart of the Khunt territory, a land of rolling hills and fertile valleys. The elders, their faces etched with determination, traveled from village to village, spreading the word of their quest and seeking guidance from the village elders and spiritual leaders. They consulted ancient texts, their pages brittle with age, seeking clues and prophecies that might lead them to the chosen one. Weeks turned into months as the elders' quest continued. They journeyed across treacherous mountain passes and navigated through dense forests, their resolve unwavering. They spoke to countless individuals, each name whispered with reverence and hope, but none felt quite right. The weight of the responsibility pressed down on them, for they knew the fate of their people rested on their shoulders. Just as their hope began to dwindle, a name surfaced, repeated with increasing frequency and conviction.
A true Khunt was selected, and the new king was duly appointed. The new king was brought to High Heel, the new place of worship to the king, who just happened to also be a total Khunt, meaning he was real Khunt at birth, but was also by breeding a pure Khunt. There were tribes of little Khunts that were not considered true Khunts, and they had interbred with the bigger Khunts sometime in the past, according to Khuntish lore, and based on the fact that there were a lot of those little Khunts still running around. They manifested as a recessive gene, and would occasionally be born amongst a bunch of ordinary Khunts, often surprising the parents into exclaiming, "Geez, my kid is a real little Khunt." The war, more of a fracas than a real war, was short and decisive, quickly coming to a happy ending. The Deeks had run out of their main weapon, their balls, emptying the sacks they had prepared for the battle in the first few minutes. With no balls flying at them, the army of ferocious, hairy Khunts, with big, strong Deeks at their side smote, but a few of the army of Deeks, before the Deeks capitulated, retreated to their tents, closed the flaps and zipped up the fly, sobbing and weeping prematurely about their impending emasculation at the hand of those Khunts. Unexpectedly, when it was all over, the Khunts that had been seen as vicious, nasty Khunts in general suddenly turned back into nice Khunts and released all the captured Deeks, no matter their circumstance.
Talus, a young Khunt, barely a man, but known for his wisdom beyond his years, his compassion, and his innate ability to unite those around him. Talus, they believed, was the answer to their prayers, the beacon of hope that could guide them out of the darkness.
This gave rise to groups of angry, misguided Khunts targeting lone Deeks and attacking them in a posse of throbbing Khunts, seemingly swallowing the dumbfounded Deeks out of existence. Well, time went on and civilization developed to a point where kings were voted in and out like honeymooning Deeks trying to order a cocktail. "Oh, no, I definitely want brandy in mine. Oh no, wait, I'll have sex on the beach." Technology had advanced to a point where Khunts lived in homes which now had doors that were sometimes left open. To be king was still a great honor, even though many left the kingship prematurely due to inconsistencies. Someone who has shown the spirit and aptitude to be considered as king in the future is known as a far king, a small jibe about how short the time would really be king before the tribes became restless, releasing the latest nominee as the new king. In Chapter 1, when we join the society, we watch it as it wallows through its final stages of moral decay, devouring itself spiritually from within, having lost the true meaning of what it is to be an upright, proper Deek or a pure, unadulterated Khunt. To learn more of its story, we will join a couple in crisis. We will move into the consciousness of a would-be Farking Khunt, so we can get a real good feel of what he has to go through, married to someone who won't admit she's a natural-born and well-trained Khunt that unfortunately spends her time acting like a real Deek. We find the time between kings has become so short and meaningless that to be the king is now a joke. Now, if one is wrongly accused of a blasphemy or crime, the accused will often be heard to cry, "So, I'm just another farking cunt," making them pretty much worthless. It can sometimes be a call to the Almighty or as a crude swear word, as may be used by our culture when we use the term Jesus Christ in a blasphemous way. A false accuser is colloquially named after the first fake king, and as a deliberate faux pas is called a real deekhead, referring to their congenital baldness. In the end, it was revealed that the entire time the original King Dick was in power, he was secretly hiding the fact that at birth, he was really a farking cunt and was rightfully king. What a sticky mess they got themselves into. Enjoy.